All right, future barristers, let's talk. If you're gearing up for the Queensland Bar exam, you know civil procedure is a beast. So today, we're going to crack the code on a really critical and, yeah, kind of tricky part of it, UCPR Rule 212. Let's make sure you walk into that exam ready to nail any question on disclosure. So let's just jump right into the classic scenario. A notice for disclosure lands on your desk. Your gut tells you that you have to hand things over, but you also know it's not a free-for-all. So what can you actually hold back? Well, the answer to that is all about mastering the exceptions. Okay, so first things first, we've got to understand the starting point. The general rule under the UCPR is pretty broad. Basically, you have this ongoing duty to disclose any document that's directly relevant to the case. It's all about putting your cards on the table, no surprises. But, and trust me, this is a very big but, there are some really important exceptions. And this is where our hero, Rule 212, steps onto the scene. Seriously, if you're studying for the exam, this rule needs to be your best friend. It gives you 3 very specific, very clear categories of documents that you do not have to disclose. So here they are, straight from Rule 212, Subrule 1. Think of them as your 3 main get-out-of-disclosure-free cards. Number 1, privileged documents. Number 2, documents that are only relevant to someone's credit, basically their credibility. And number 3, extra copies of documents you've already disclosed as long as they don't have any new notes on them. Now, for today, we're going to focus on the heavyweight champion of exceptions, privilege. Okay, let's really get into the weeds on this one. Rule 212-1A says privileged documents are safe. And that's usually your first line of defense. But what exactly counts as privilege? And, maybe even more importantly, how do you accidentally lose it? Now, there are a few different types of privilege out there, but let's be real. 99% of the time, the one you're going to be fighting about is legal professional privilege. This is the shield that protects those confidential chats between you, your client, and maybe a third party, all for the main purpose of getting legal advice or for litigation. But here's the warning. That shield, it can be broken. You can waive it. So here's the kicker. Understanding waiver is absolutely critical. Privilege isn't just a status, it's something you have to maintain. And you lose it when you or your client does something that's just inconsistent with keeping it secret. The test for this comes from a huge high court case you just have to know. This is it. This is the money quote from Mann v. Carnell. And for the exam, you need to tattoo this name on your brain, Mann v. Carnell. It is the authority on waiver. So the question you always have to ask is, has my client's action, maybe like sharing legal advice with a business partner, totally undermined the whole idea of keeping it confidential? If the answer is yes, privilege is likely gone. Remember the name, Mann v. Carnell. Okay, but what happens when, you mess up? We've all had that heart-stopping panic when you realize you just attached the wrong file to an email. You've sent a privileged document to the other side. Oh no. Is it game over? Is privilege lost forever? Well, deep breaths, because the High Court gave us a lifeline here in a case called Expense Reduction Analysts. The key takeaway is that a genuine mistake, an inadvertent disclosure, is not the same as waiver. A court will almost always order the other side to give it back and delete all their copies. The crucial thing, though, is you have to act fast. The second you realize the mistake, you have to jump on it. Right, so just when you think you've got this whole privilege thing sorted, the UCPR throws a massive curveball. It's a special rule, a carve-out that is specific to expert reports, and it's a trap that lawyers from other states fall into all the time here in Queensland. So picture this. You hire an expert. You need them to write a report for the case. It's created for the dominant purpose of litigation. It's confidential. So it's got to be covered by legal professional privilege, right? I mean, it ticks all the boxes. Nope, absolutely not. And this, right here, is a classic exam trap. This is where UCPR Rule 212, Subrule 2, comes in and just blows everything up. It specifically removes or abrogates legal professional privilege for expert reports. The wording of the rule is super important. A document consisting of a statement or report of an expert. This rule is a huge deal, it's a big departure from other places, and it was upheld in a key case of Interchase Corporation. What it means in practice is that the expert's final report, and yep, even their draft reports, have to be disclosed. No privilege. Okay, so if the report itself is out in the open, what's left? Is anything related to your expert still protected? This is where the case law has drawn some really fine and, you guessed it, very examinable lines that you absolutely need to know. And this slide right here breaks it down perfectly. Look, over on the left in the privilege column, you've got your confidential chats with the expert, that's from Interchase, and the formal letter of instruction you send to the expert, which comes from Bryce v. Anderson. But look to the right, not privileged. That includes all the expert's working papers and research material, also from Interchase, and crucially, all of their draft reports. That one comes from Mitchell Contractors. So that brings us to an even trickier situation. A recent Court of Appeal case clarified a point that is just screaming to be an exam question. What about your file note? The one you typed up after a conference with your expert. Is that privileged? And the answer comes from Enkelman v. Stewart. The court looked really closely at the exact words of Rule 212.2. And remember, it only removes privilege for a document consisting of a statement or report of an expert. Your file note? That's not a report of the expert. It's your document. It's the solicitor's own work product. So it stays privileged. This is such a vital distinction to get your head around. The case, again, is Enkelman v. Stewart. Okay, deep breath. Let's lock all of this in. We've covered a fair bit of ground, but it really boils down to a few core ideas and a handful of key cases. So here are the absolute must-remember takeaways for any exam question on Rule 212. First up, always start with Rule 212, Sub-Rule 1. It gives you those 3 magic doorways to avoid disclosure: privilege, relevance only to credit, and duplicate copies. Know them. And second, the giant exception to the exception, the big trap. Rule 212, Sub-Rule 2. Expert reports are not privileged in Queensland. Burn that into your memory. It's a huge deal. And finally, these 5 cases are your toolkit. You need these names on the tip of your tongue. You've got Mann v. Cornell for the waiver test, expense reduction analysts for when you make a mistake, Interchase for the expert's working papers, Mitchell Contractors for the draft reports, and that crucial recent one, Enkelman v. Stewart, for your own file notes. Got it? So there you have it. That's the framework. You now have the tools to confidently smash any problem question on UCPR Rule 212. You know the exceptions, you know the massive expert trap, and you have the key cases to back up every single one of your arguments. Now go ace that exam. Good luck.